Welcome to Unconventional. I'm your host, Bill Tessar. Unique stories from entrepreneurs that have failed, picked themselves up, been knocked down, picked themselves up again, traveled roads that few travel. It's about digging into the successes that people have found in real estate, financing, lending, and the like. The path to success rarely takes a straight line. Sometimes it takes a leap of faith to create your own luck. My guest began his journey in real estate law, handling REO dispositions for GMAC. But his ambition and his unconventional mindset led him to a bold move, launching his own real estate brokerage at the height of the financial crisis, when most realtors and lenders were leaving the industry. It was a time of high risk and very, very low certainty. With a family to provide for, no income guarantees, and a market in freefall, he pushed his chips all in and he bet on himself. His story is one of persistence, risk, and turning challenges into opportunities. And I'm thrilled to have him on our show to share his unconventional story. Sharing the mic with me today is Kip Adkins, founder and president of Diversified Financing Solutions.
Thanks, Bill.
How are you?
Well, good.
So
Thank
before we get started, I always like to toast you,
all right,
my guest, with a little Macallan's. Watch
Cheers.
your mics. Cheers. Okay, we talked a little bit about bourbon, whiskey, scotch, and I think you're a believer now on the Macallan 18?
I like the 18.
You
yeah.
like it?
Yeah.
Okay, good. What's got you excited right now today?
Look, I think in real estate investing, I think this is a very exciting time right now. We still have tons of opportunity for people to come in and add value. There's a lot of new people coming into the market, and interest rates have come down a little bit. I think that's going to put a little bit of fury in the market, a lot more activity, and I still think there's a ton of aging housing stock out there that needs to be refurbished and resold for that next generation of buyers. I mean, that's what's got me excited. I think there's still a lot of opportunity in real estate.
I get a kick out of the whole interest rate conversation because guys like you and me that have been in the space a long time, it's not a live and die by the rates, but we watch it. We watch it like the weatherman would watch, storms coming in. And I do think that with the run that happened the opposite way with interest rates, just seeing even 50 basis points come down, I know a lot of people expected to be like 25.
Yeah.
There was a roar. Yeah. And you watched a 10-year and there wasn't a whole lot that happened, but...
It was already there.
Yeah, but it was already there. But I do think it's the beginning of something. Rates do have to come down. Housing has to be more affordable. Yeah. We got to get people in the game. And before we talk about your game today, I do want to go back to the early beginnings. You started your career in 1996.
Yes, sir. Yep.
1996, real estate law.
Yep.
And you transitioned into asset management.
Yep, REO asset management or disposition of bank-owned properties. Yep, inside the bank.
So last night we were having dinner, and I said something to you, and I believe it to be true. First of all, there's an awful lot of people in our business, even younger folks, that really don't understand that whole part of the business. And I said to you over a crab cake, I said, understanding what happens when good people do bad things. Yeah. And that whole spiral effect of that asset and how you disposition it and get it back might be one of the single most important educational pieces of a professional in our space, and one that's grossly overlooked. Yeah. So kind of walk me through your early stages at GMAC and working your way up through the whole asset management and NPL disposition.
Yeah. I mean, dude, that's enlightening actually for somebody to say that, because I came from the REO, the back end of when a loan goes bad, right? And everyone else that I'm competing with has been in the origination side for 30 years. So it's nice. It was enlightening for you to say that for me. It was kind of like, yeah, you know what? You're right. And I've been saying that for years, but you said it to me before I said it to you about how my career, how that's all applicable, right?
It is.
So, I mean, we saw... my career goes back to 1996, like you said, and we were doing foreclosures and evictions for Norwest Bank.
Norwest.
Yeah,
You're dating yourself right now.
I know, and they're not even around anymore. I think they might have gotten consumed by Wells Fargo.
They did. They did, yeah.
But we would type out these. As a paralegal, I would type out all these notice to quits, and I would see 5, 6, 7, 10 names on a deed of trust. That was like the Norwest special.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a FHA loan, and I didn't really know why. I would ask the questions here and there, and the attorneys would say, "Well, yeah, they put this many people on the loan to qualify for the FHA financing."
Wow.
Yeah, I haven't seen that since. But we would type out these notice to quits, and we would process server goes out and serves them. And what happened after that, I didn't really know. I knew the bank was taking it. They were getting the property vacant so they could resell the property, right, and recover their money. Mm-hmm. And when I got the opportunity to work at GMAC, that's when I went over there and I told you about all the ways that I kind of enhanced my career in the desk I was sitting in. But I was watching these guys doing the REO asset management and selling these properties, and they were the rock stars. They were the guys making the big bucks. And
moving and shaking every day.
Moving and shaking, taking phone calls and making deals all day long. And I was like, they're not driving around showing people properties. A lot of these properties are distressed, meaning they wouldn't qualify for traditional financing.
Right.
And they weren't end users, they were investors buying these properties.
Yep.
But they were gobbling them up. They were flying off the shelves. So I wanted to be that guy. And I set my sights on that, and I went from the eviction desk to REO asset management.
That position.
That position.
You know, was one thing you told me last night, which I was like, son of a gun.
Yeah.
Is you had the path, depending on what state, judicial or non-judicial, all the if this, then that, if this, then that. And you had a path.
On my eviction desk, yeah.
And you did it on all of the properties or all the states you lent in, correct?
Yes. Yep.
And the bank benefited from that quite a bit.
Yeah.
Because nobody had gone through the headache to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is actually, at that time, you probably could have made millions selling that document. If you think about all the banks and all the stuff that went through, because no one actually really did take the time to do that.
Yeah. Oh, I'm laughing because I'm like dying to tell this story. I worked for a guy, and he's big in the industry now. I won't mention. Maybe I should. Should I mention?
Yeah, mention his name.
His name is Jason Allnut.
Okay.
And Jason Allnut, he runs 10X now. He runs auction.com.
Okay.
And Jason was my immediate boss, and he said, if you could save us money on the evictions, he's like, I would compensate you for this.
Okay.
And I was still, I told you I was in.
Jason, listen up. Invoice is coming.
Right, it should be. Yeah.
But was that the genesis for you to start putting that together?
I wanted to do it anyway, because what would happen back in the day is you would start an eviction file, and you would send it off to, some attorney, and I won't mention attorneys' names, but you'll send it off to an attorney in Chicago, and you go, hey, we need to do an unlawful detainer. And they start the eviction, process server goes out there to knock, it's vacant. And they still bill us a flat fee. That was flat fee billing back then. Mm-hmm. And I went to a cafeteria billing, so I had to know each state and judicial, non-judicial, and how the eviction was handled.
Timelines, notice of defaults, trustee periods, all that.
Yeah, all that.
Lots.
Yeah.
It's amazing that you put that together. Do you still have that?
It's the property of GMAC RFC. Okay. All right. But I brought it to Allnut, and I said, look, it's up there. It's evolved so much, I'm probably irrelevant now. But yeah, I took it to Allnut, and I said, hey, here's what you wanted. And he took it to his boss, and they applauded. And he's like, what do you want?
Why I think that's important, and we're going to get to what you're doing now in a little bit, but when you're making a loan, you've seen what can happen when good people do bad things and stop making payments. You've seen.
Yeah.
So I do believe in my heart, and I think you'd support me on this, that as you're making a decision to move forward on an origination with the back end history and knowledge in mind, it does beg you to ask an extra question or two to make sure that that person, not just for your headache, but for the person's headache, doesn't end up being one of those examples of your 1996 to 07-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, those are those are scars that you learn from, right? If they're not my scars, the bank that I worked for,
Yes.
their scars. And you see those things firsthand and you go, I know how this could end. You know, I know an eviction in New York is taking upwards of 3 to 5 years these days.
Yeah.
So is that something I want to...
You know, it's one of the reasons we don't lend. And I know some of the folks in New York will lend to the LLC and then they put a UCC filing on it and they take that back. But we've actually just chosen not to lend in that state because if challenged, even that other UCC move, if challenged, you could be in court an awful long time. And for us, it's like you could do a 75% loan and blow through that 25% of equity and legal and recovery fees so quick that you're left with something that's 7 to 15% underwater in a normalized market.
Yeah.
Assuming the market doesn't go the other way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's like I don't know how you feel about that, but I think for us, it's like we think about when you do have to recover an asset that you're going to do it in a relatively reasonable period of time.
Yeah.
One of the stories that I'd like to share with you is Kip and I were having dinner, and I told him a story about a loan that was on my desk, and this was just a couple weeks ago, and Kip knew nothing about it. And there's a punchline to this, and I'm going to get there quick. And it was a deal in Texas. It was a $10 million purchase. The borrower was bringing 35% down, so $3.5 million down. They brought to us 4 appraisals that ranged from 9.1 to 9.5. And of course, we're like 4 different appraisals. Like, what's the problem there? But, you know, maybe a lender couldn't do what they said they were going to do and they paid for an appraisal. Another lender couldn't do another appraisal. But we're looking at these appraisals. And what I said to Kip, and he's just coming along on my story, going, 35% hard. That what you said to me was that person would solve the problem if they got into trouble, right?
Yeah.
They got $3.5 million in the deal.
It's not walkaway money.
That's right. It's not walkaway money. And so we liked, we'll figure it out. Well, we had our appraisal department look at the appraisal, and they come back and they said it's 7.2 to 7.5, and we're like 7.2 to 7.5. How could that be? And then you look at title and you find the property is in default, and then you ask the question. The same question Kip would ask himself is like, why would someone pay $10 million for a property that's in default when their own appraisals don't support that? And he says to me, literally in unison, he goes, arm's length transaction.
Absolutely, yeah.
Not an arm's length transaction.
Yeah.
And literally, I believe like some of the experiences of the middle to late 90s and all through the financial crisis is just that. It's to have that perspective, to look at a deal, not by the 2 or 3 points that are on the sheet, but peel it back a little bit and deeper. And it's one of the things about your career that I think, and you mentioned it earlier, but I do think it is super valuable about the way you lend today, and probably why you don't have a litany of bad loans having been made, because you think about these things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And most people don't.
How it's going to end. You got to consider how it ends.
So, you know, you start on the back end of the lending transaction with REO and evictions, and you take this leap into entrepreneurship in the shittiest time in the history of lending.
No other word for it, right? Yeah.
Like 2007-ish?
2007, May 17th, 2007.
Yeah, so like during that time, what were you think? Did you realize how bad it was at the time that you were going in? Like, did you see the opportunity with all the properties that were being taken back?
Yeah.
So walk me through that.
Yeah, so absolutely. I mean, I saw opportunity because I had been in the bank. We had been foreclosing and selling bank-owned properties in Washington, Oregon, Chicago, Tennessee, New York, all over the place. We hadn't seen a California. And I honestly, let me say this. I think I have, I'm going to say this jokingly, but there's some truth to this, a little bit of an ability to foresee a black swan event.
Wow. Well, we're going to talk about that.
We could talk about that. I'll tell you about 2.
Okay.
So the first one was the financial crisis.
Yep.
And I'm working at AmeriQuest, and I'm doing disposition of the worst kind of loans, the subprime, the worst of the subprime loans, right?
Okay.
And I'm buying a house in Orange County for my wife and I and my newborn baby, and we're competing with everybody. And I've got 20% down payment. right?
Okay.
Sold my house in San Diego. I moved to Orange County. I've got a 20% down payment. I'm qualified. I've got W-2 income. Everything is good. And I go in and write an offer on a property in Tustin, California. And the agent, I wrote it $469, right? Was the list price. And I wrote it $469. The agent called me and said, "Have you seen the property?" And I was like, "Yeah. But despite the condition, I'm willing to pay the list price because I need a place to live. And I can go in and fix that stuff." It was horrible, by the way.
Okay.
And she said, she kind of chuckled and she said, "Well, you're off. I mean, we've got multiple offers." And I said, "Well, then give me a counter offer." I think they countered me at $490, right, on a $469 list price, and said, "Remove the appraisal contingency, remove the finance contingency." And I went, "Hell no." I go, I don't need this property that bad, right? It still has to appraise. I still have to get financing.
Yeah.
I need those contingencies.
Of course.
So, and I kind of went, what is going on in Orange County? I thought Orange County was more affordable than San Diego when I moved up here.
Yeah.
And I looked at the affordability index, and I saw this. I saw the affordability index. The CAR would publish it monthly, and it was going from low 20s to high teens, mid-teens. It got down to the single digits in Orange County, but things were still flying off the shelves. I'm going, what is happening? And I've got these. Now we've seen the REO portfolio tick up, and I'm like, this has to be propped up. I don't know anything about the secondary market. I don't know. I'm just burying my head doing my REO.
We're still in 07 right now, correct?
Oh, this is.
Or is this before?
05.
Oh, this is 05. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is leading into it.
Okay. Yeah, before the shit hit the fan, really. And I was like, I'm when my daughter was born, I met somebody who had been an REO broker himself. And he said, I told him where I worked. He's like, "Oh my gosh, I used to sell properties for these two guys that work in AmeriQuest and REO. And I said, I think it's coming again. I said, I think it's coming again. And it's going to be bad. And he was like, I'm writing subprime loans right now. I know it's coming, right? These people are just.
He felt the same way.
He felt the same way. So we watched, and the first one popped up. The second one popped up. This is all at AmeriQuest. 2005, 2006, they started popping up here and there. By 2007, they were everywhere in Orange County. And I thought, they all have to sell. That's the beautiful thing about a bank. They're not emotional about a property. They have to get it off the books. And they go, we have to sell this property. So it might take a little bit longer. The old REO, what we used to say, the old adage that we used to say was every property sells at some price eventually.
That's what you guys said.
That's what you say, yeah.
That's such a crappy model.
Yeah, but
eventually, some price.
But the bank has to sell them.
They do.
So, we got AmeriQuest sold to Citibank. I had gone through multiple layers of senior management over me and changing my pay and moving the cheese at the bank. And I said, I want to remove all the variables above me that determine my pay.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's just time to pull the trigger, and I'm going to quit my 6-figure job.
In 06, 07.
In 07. I quit May 17th.
So ballsy. So ballsy.
Yeah.
I mean, there were literally in 07, for anybody that was in lending and know what I'm talking about, there were no bids on mortgages. Like when that collapse began, there was no stopping it. And to have the thoughtfulness to say, you know what, this is going to mean banks are going to foreclose. Those foreclosures are going to be inventory. That inventory needs to be moved, and I know how to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, the timing could not have been better for you.
Yeah.
It really couldn't have.
In that respect.
For sure.
And then all the market hurdles that, I experienced when we got out there and got into the field, and you realize, okay, now I've got a property. Now I've got a buyer. Do they have financing?
Yeah, that was the next big problem, right?
Yeah.
There was something that Kip and I talked about last night, and it was and go look this up at your convenience. There is a site called the Mortgage Implode Meter, and I believe if you go on there now, I haven't looked at it in a while, but there was probably 400 plus of the biggest lending institutions in the United States that are on that list. The biggies,
Yeah.
the GMAC, the RFCs,
Yeah.
the Countrywides, the Home Savings, all of them. They all failed. And while I was lending during the time that Kip was taking a look at the industry and saying, I'm going to pivot, we were literally taking our broker checks from closed loans and running to the bank to cash them because the companies were failing so quick. So think about that. You go out, you originate a loan, you go through the processing, you fund that loan, you get paid for the funding of the loan, and what you would normally do is it would sit on your desk, and at the end of the week, you'd make the deposit, and good life.
Yeah.
Here, you're getting that check from the escrow, running to the bank, and hoping from the time they issued the check to the time you deposit in the bank hasn't failed, and many did.
Yeah.
It was just a crazy, crazy time.
Wild. Yeah.
So you jump in, walk me through jumping in now.
Yeah. So, we jumped in. I hit the phones like one does when you start a business, and you call up everybody you know and tell them what you're doing.
Yep.
And see who can help and who would trust you with their business. And I got a lot of bites, got a lot of a positive reaction on that.
Who are you calling at this time? Are you calling realtors? Are you calling lenders? Who are you
calling REO shops?
So people that actually had the properties that they were trying to disposition.
Yep.
Did you ever think at any time to go to bypass them and go directly to the banks, or were you always dealing with the ones that had the accounts?
No, it's a mixed bag. So REO, back in the day, they had an REO department. GMAC had an REO department. AmeriQuest had an REO department. And until that staff reached capacity, then they would go outsource that business to like an REO outsource group. But I called everybody. The people I knew from GMAC scattered to different parts of the industry. The people I knew from AmeriQuest had scattered to different parts of the industry.
So you had contacts.
I had contacts. Yeah.
And
personal sales.
Yeah. So you leave a 6-figure job. That's you got your base and your bonus and all your benefits.
Yeah.
You took a loan out on your house to start this thing.
I did.
And is your wife going like, hey, like what? Should we talk? Like, is this smart, or was she enthusiastic about it, nervous? Like, what was that like?
Yeah. So if you're a good salesman, you can sell your wife on anything.
I want to hear this.
Yeah.
Teach me.
Yeah. So
Teach
I'm
me.
sure you're the best salesman at your house.
I don't know that I am.
Yeah.
When my wife talks crap to me, I said, go watch the podcast. It's like, you'll really enjoy it.
Yeah.
You see a different side of me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So go ahead. So how'd you get through that?
So look, I told my wife just the same back of the napkin business plan. I said, the banks are foreclosing on these houses. They have to sell these houses. This is the average sales price. If the bank pays me 1% to 2% commission on liquidating these properties, this is where I can be. And here's our hurdle, right? At the time, I had two babies under 3. Yeah. And I went, this is our hurdle, right? Got to meet the hurdle.
Yeah. Hurdle being your budget that you have to pay for.
Yeah,
your nut.
The monthly nut.
Yeah.
Yep. So
when you took your loan out, without me getting too personal, did you say, I'm going to give myself X amount of time?
I did.
And what was that X amount of time? How much time did you give her?
6 months.
You said if it's 6 months, I don't do what I think I can do, I'll go back and somebody's going to hire me because I'm awesome at what I do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. I'm going to go to the industry that's flooded on the inside, and there's probably a job there's a desk at every company I could probably go to and go back and work for the man again. So
that's comforting to know that there's a fallback plan. But are you coming home at the end of the day and your wife going like, did you talk to anybody? Did you get a listing? Any deals in escrow? Was she grinding on that at all?
No.
Just trusting the process?
Yeah. God bless her. She was great. Yeah. She had her own thing going on with the 2 kids. And I would just go, there were nights when I would lay there thinking, I'll tell you something I did. And this is like the one story. Okay. So when you go and knock on an REO property, you go and knock on a door and you break the news to somebody, hey, the bank foreclosed, and they want you out of here as soon as possible.
So you're knocking after the sale had taken place, and they're still. And do you think some of these people didn't know that?
I don't think there's any way you don't know. There's maybe a couple of the thousands of stories where somebody didn't know. A spouse hid it from...
But for the most part, they know this knock was coming.
They knew the knock was coming.
Okay.
Yeah.
So walk me through that. So you knock on the door.
Yeah.
Is it scary for you? Because you don't know how they're going to respond. Somebody
you don't know.
might want to threaten you. Right?
Yeah. It depends on where you go.
Right.
It depends on where you go. You knock on the door in South Orange County. I'm not too concerned.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you knock on the door.
You knock on the door and you go, hey, I'm Kip Adkins. You take the high road.
Yeah.
I'm Kip Adkins. The bank sent me here. I don't know if you're aware or not, but the bank's foreclosed on the property. Are you so-and-so, the former owner? No, they don't live here. I'm a tenant and I rent here. Those are the guys that typically may or may not have known, right? Mm-hmm. So
They're pissed because they've been paying rent. They don't.
Yeah.
They got a term.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, and then you just flip the script. And oh man, that guy didn't tell you. You know, you're still paying rent. Well, listen, we're gonna need you out. The bank will give you 30 days, and they'll write you a check if you leave it
Like
clean.
a cash for keys type of
Cash
thing.
for keys. That's exactly it. Yep. So yeah, we would do this, but a lot of times you would go to a property, and I get in the property. It might be vacant. Somebody's got a half-done project in the house. They've got a shower that's incomplete, or maybe they even stripped the house, right?
Yep.
But I saw a lot of those projects, and this is the funny part of the story where I was like, this was what would keep me staring at the ceiling at night when I started this. I took out that money, did my little home equity line of credit, gave myself the runway, the 6 months to make this work, and I thought I should improve the house a little bit. So I did a shower. The shower took 3 months to get done. And
Longer and more money.
Longer and more money, like any project is,
Yes.
right? And I was going, if I don't make it, there was a voice in the back of my head that said, if I don't make it, the bank's going to come knock on the door. They're going to take this house back. There's going to be a guy just like me going through the house going, they didn't finish the bathroom, right?
Wow.
And now it's a distressed property and it has to sell for cash. It's going to sell for less, yada, yada, yada. But that went through my mind a couple times. But, I think as an entrepreneur, you take those little wins. You get a call. Somebody says, yeah, I'll do business with you. You go, sweet, there's a little win, right? I'm a little bit more relaxed now. I'm a little bit, my plan is working. You get a listing. Okay, it's another little win. You get an offer on that listing. You get a closing. Those are huge wins.
Yep.
And that's what keeps you going when you're an entrepreneur.
And so how do you transition from that to saying, I could lend money on this? Like I could help them with financing. Is it that they weren't very good at finding it? There wasn't a lot of options? Like where was that aha moment?
Yeah. So, like you were talking about the stress test, right? For the mortgage banks, these guys, the banks would say, they painted you into a corner as a listing broker, and they would say, look, sell the property as is, and make sure that whoever's going to buy this property is working with a direct lender. No mortgage brokers, because we know a lot of that wholesale stuff's going away, right? And they would say direct lender only, pre-qualification, sold as is.
Okay.
So you want somebody to pay the top of the market in a declining market. You want them to work with a direct lender and be pre-qualified through Dodd-Frank and everything else that's changed in the mortgage industry. Right? And the property may or may not be fit for habitability. It might be missing a water heater. It might have that half remodeled, master shower.
Yep.
And the lender's going to say, you got to fix that before we can finance it. And the bank says, nope, we're not going to fix anything. So find us another buyer. But if somebody if they weren't going to live in the property and they were buying this as an investment property and they just couldn't find the financing, it was like, we're cashing checks now, and we've got moved over the retirement. It actually started with my retirement account from the banks I'd worked at, moved that into a self-directed IRA, and somebody's like, dude, I just need $300,000 to close this deal, a $400,000 property. There's good protective equity there. And
That's how you got started?
Yeah.
And you said, I'll lend my own money on this asset that I know and I'm familiar with it, and I'll be your lender?
Yeah.
How did you determine coupon? Did you snoop around to see what other private money people were doing, or was it feel?
Yeah. So when you talk about luck, I did have, it's some grit and some dumb luck, because it was like, 12%? Does 12% seem okay?
Was that how you approached it?
Yeah.
So
I didn't know anything about the industry and how big it was, and
so that was what year are we in now? We 08, 09?
Yeah, it's
when you started.
08, 09. Yeah.
So you're kind of in the belly of the beast of the financial crisis. 12% seems like a fair rate
Yeah.
for what was going on. A few 3-4% higher than a conventional loan, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Back then, yeah.
And so when
And
you
3 or
lend
4
it,
points.
and they're going like, yeah, of course, because they're looking at, I'm going to make money on this deal. I'm not going to get caught up in the few thousands of dollars of interest I'm going to spend.
Yeah, exactly.
And then on the
Like
points,
a smart investor would, yeah.
And then on the points, do you also go, how's 3 points sound?
Yeah.
So you go, how's 12 sound and how's 3 points sound?
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
And then tell me what's fair, right? And we did it on a small scale to begin with. It was friends and families and those investors that kept coming back to us to buy the REO properties. But it was like, proof of concept. This works.
So, but that was your money first.
Yes.
Okay. So now you've taken, like, sorry to dig into your financial past, but you've taken your equity line. Now you've taken your retirement. You're putting that 300 to work.
All the chips are in, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I do love that about you. I'm a chips all in guy myself, and I like that analogy with you because you've done it a few times. Really, in the scariest of moments in the space, looking back, really scary times.
Yeah.
Your wife is an angel for supporting
She
you.
really is, yeah.
I'm going to send her. You give me your text. I'm sending you guys both that because there's not a lot of wives that would have been able to have just the emotional fortitude to get through something like that.
Yeah.
Very tough.
Yeah.
So you lend.
Yes.
And they pay.
Yep.
And they pay off, and you go, huh?
Got money again. Yeah, yeah.
Interesting. And then you recycle it. At what point do you start telling other people, hey, put some money with me, and I could lend it out? And
Yeah.
How does that happen?
It's funny. It happens organically. It's like I'm at the gym and you're working out with somebody and they go, and what do you do? The gym was my country club. I don't golf. I can't get into it. But it was like, the same people around my neighborhood, my inner sphere of people that I'm at the gym with, and they're like, well, what are you doing? And you start talking about deals and they're like, I got money to lend.
Yeah.
Here.
What kind of rate can I get?
Yeah, you can get 12 too, right?
Well, so were you making spread on your fund? How did you do that? How did you think about that back then?
So back then, I mean, we would service ourselves.
Yeah.
And so we
You
would
get a
just
servicing fee or no?
we take a 1% servicing fee and then pass through the rest of the coupon.
Okay, well, that's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you source it.
Yep.
You manage it.
Take the fees.
Service it.
Take the points. Yeah.
And you give them whatever that coupon is. And I like that model.
Yeah.
And so you were doing a little bit of that, and then what? Then from there you say, well, I could also do loans and sell them to other aggregators and the like. When did that transition happen?
Yeah. Okay. So this is I'm thinking back to like how it all went down. I'll tell you, I had one foot in. The lending was like kind of a side gig, and the REO I was all in on the REO side. Cheers, man.
Cheers, buddy. Keep going.
And I went to an REO conference, and they would have these breakout sessions at the REO conference, and there was a back room, and this guy was a former asset manager from Fannie Mae, and he was talking about raising capital, and he talked about starting a 506, a Reg D 506C, a fund.
Yeah.
And and he was doing it for buying real property.
Okay.
And I went, this is incredible. I mean, you can raise money like this, and here I am doing these individual beneficiary deals, right, where I'm passing the coupon through, retaining the servicing, and I'm like, if I could just do this, I could, then I've got control of everybody's money. Everybody, they can compound all these benefits. I had no idea. This is the dumb luck thing. I had no idea, one of the dumb luck things in my story, that there was an entire industry where people had these, and the fund was the gold model back then, like early, 2011, 2012. Yep. People would start a fund, and you had, then you could reinvest and compounding interest and all those things. And I hired a securities attorney, and I explained what I wanted. It was the wrong guy. And then I started meeting people, and I told other people about what I wanted to do, and they're like, you need to talk to Dennis Doss. I mean, that's
been around for 40 years, 50 years.
And this whole industry exists, and Dennis Doss is like the master of the PPM and writing these offerings. So I found Dennis, cranked this thing out, friends, family, inner sphere, invested in the fund, put my money to work in the fund, and we were humming along. And
you're making the decisions. You're seeing the assets. You're making the determination of go, no go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're beginning and end.
Did any of those deals in the early funds not work out for you? Did you ever have to go through a foreclosure and take the property back?
Yeah.
And did you ever net lose money on a deal in foreclosure with your fund?
So, I mean, the first one we did, the guy had left the country. And
the first foreclosure you did?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he gave us a deed in lieu.
Okay.
And we stumbled through this thing. I think Dennis gave us like the deed in lieu form, and we made our edits and put it through the borrower, signed it over to us. this is where the REO came into, the REO experience. I called one of the guys that always bought my REO properties, and I said, I've got this deal in, I think it wasn't in Blythe, it was in like Bloomington or something. And I said, I've got this property. We took it back. Can you take over? He went and looked at it, and he said, yeah, the material's there. In fact, everything's there. I'm gonna buy it. What do you need? No commissions, and we got out of that. We broke even.
Wow.
No loss.
Okay.
And that was our flagship story for all the investors. Look, we've got the REO experience.
This went sideways. It could have gone into the shitter.
Yeah.
My experience did this, and this, and we ended up being okay.
Yeah.
So you've never had to make a very tough call and say part of your principal is not getting returned, or personally decide to reimburse somebody's principal that was lost in a deal?
No, we have. Yeah, and this is my second venture in private money lending.
Yeah.
So that first one I had the business partner, and we took losses. And it's as the market as we started to see rate compression and more competition coming in and trying to deploy money, being under the gun to deploy money.
Yep.
There were probably times when we took a risk that we shouldn't have. Maybe the borrower experience, or maybe the asset, the after repaired value wasn't there. But yeah, it resulted in. I mean, there's some wounds there for sure.
Yeah, it is funny. We do a thing at our company, and I've done it for years, where if a deal doesn't end up working the way you thought, we do a complete postmortem on the deal.
Yeah.
And it's not to point fingers. It's really just to learn about your thought at the time.
Yeah.
And I found more value in postmortems on deals that have gone wrong than any deal that has gone right.
Yeah.
Right? Those are the easy ones. So, yeah, that is interesting. But today, you originate.
Yes, sir.
You will sell loans.
Yep.
You will broker loans, and you will fund. You will put loans on your fund.
Yes.
So you have like 3 different veins that your originations can go to.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think that is a differentiator for you in this space, because most people are limited to 1 or 2 veins, not 3.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy that flexibility where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you gave me some wonderful advice last night that I need to probably get out of the trenches a little bit, but I've got my hands on everything. So I talk to a borrower. I vet that deal. And I tell everybody, and I put this on my educational platform too, we don't load a loan unless we know we can close that loan. So we try to identify any of those.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm 98% success. And the 2% are because the borrower backed out for property condition, or the appraisal didn't come in, but it's not borrower qualifications, or I guess at that point it's collateral problems, right? Mm-hmm. But we're 98% success because we do that vetting in the beginning, and then I try to figure out where that loan goes. Mm-hmm. And go ahead.
Well, no, but if the value doesn't come in, but you believe in the value, because there are problems with appraisals in today's day and age, and I think one of the real big problems of our space is that there's not a lot of young people that are going out and getting their appraisal license, and so it's almost a dying breed. And these are the same folks you and I did business with in the 90s, and they're kind of hanging up their hats, and so the quality of a lot of appraisals that you see in the industry is challenging. So is there times where you get one back, you look at it and you go, I know this area, it's my backyard, I know what that value is, it's not that value, and you'll run it through your fund? Or will you just push back on the appraiser and have that little back and forth?
Yeah, so I mean, there's an unspoken loyalty or duty to the investors in the fund. Mm-hmm. So I have the ability to do that, yes, but I have that duty to the investors in the fund where I go, I don't want them to come in. If somebody came in and wanted to look at a file, they can look at a file. It's their money. Mm-hmm. All the investors in the fund. And if I said, okay, this property, this value came in at $450 and I know it's worth $550, mm-hmm. right? As is. So I extended the leverage higher than 80% of the $450.
Yep.
I would have to answer to them.
So you generally won't put yourself in that position.
No.
You'd rather push back on the appraisal and have them look at the comps or the area GLA or whatever they might be off on?
Yeah.
Okay, I got you.
And I think that, there's probably areas where I do often make exception and go, I know I can't fund this loan and sell this loan to these institutions, right? So put it on the balance sheet and sell it off the balance sheet. And I know it's not going to fit for CB3 because of the FICO or the experience and the borrower wants this, but there's mitigating factors. And I'll go, and I'll document it. And if the investors came in and wanted to see, the value isn't something I would stray from, but let's say it's the FICO score. It's a 596 and there's events that, have gotten their FICO below 600.
Right, but not tragic ones.
Not tragic ones. No, they're not a career debtor.
Yeah.
There's not a mailbox, seemingly not a mailbox full of hate in their front yard.
Right.
Right?
Well said.
Yeah. So I go, okay, this guy's got money and he's got equity and he's got other properties and he's just, he's overextended himself. He's ran his credit too many times and this is where he's at. I'm going to make this loan. I think this loan will do good.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a sweet spot in terms of your fund size? Like if you said, if it's just under 20 million today, are you like, hey, in 3 years, I want it to be 50. I don't want it to be more than 50. Like what is kind of a target for you on that fund?
Yeah. I want to scale the business. Mm-hmm. I shouldn't say need. I want to scale the business. Everybody has dreams of grandeur, right? Mm-hmm. I like the slow grow that I'm doing. I think we talked about this last night.
We did.
I've been very picky about who comes into the fund, and I don't want to be under the gun to deploy capital. I don't want to take in $3 or $4 million that I can't deploy into loans.
Yep.
So it's just keeping this sweet spot where the money comes in and the money goes back out, and we've got money to lend. So I'm not, a stale lender that doesn't have any money, and
Right.
I've got the other resources and other capital providers and partners like CV3.
Yeah.
But I still have to be relevant and have that balance sheet to lend out. So it's delicate. It's a slow grow. I want to get there, and it'll probably be fund number 3 is when I'll probably go, okay, I've perfected the model in fund 2, which is my baby. It's my sweetheart, and when I get to fund 3, it'll be something like a warehouse line fund. Mm-hmm. And, we're paying some hurdle and the fund is getting that consistently. And we know we've got a model to get loans in and out, and the things that we're stuck with are going to meet that hurdle on the coupon. It's a long explanation, but I think to answer your question, I think I'm being very picky about how much capital comes in and what I lend on and who I let into the fund.
Who you let into the fund as an investor, not who. You're picky as to who goes into the fund as an originator as well. You're double picky.
Double picky, yeah.
So we talked a little bit about this, and I have a very, very strong opinion. And I told you before the podcast that I don't know that everyone would agree with me, and that's okay because I feel passionate about my opinion. And the opinion is that if you've come from tough times, it not only makes you tough, but it creates it creates a why and a drive that is different than you can learn in college. It is different than you could inherit from a friend. It is something that's ingrained where you just know you want more for your life. And I know that kind of touched you early on. Was there anything in particular when you were young that you recall today that you say like that moment right there, I knew I was going to go be successful and make money, provide for my family? Yeah. Was there a moment with like something you think back on, that was it?
Yeah. As a kid, well, I mean, I the background is I came from a broken family, like a lot of us Gen Xers did, right?
Yep.
And when mom and dad were married, we lived in the nice house in the affluent area. And then when mom and dad got divorced, we moved to the worst area, and not having enough, I mean, is the easy way to put that.
Maybe even tougher that you had it and it was taken from you.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I saw both sides of the fence, and I went, I'm reminded of the scene in The Wolf of Wall Street. I've been a rich man and I've been a poor man, and I'll choose rich every day. Yeah. And I didn't want my kids to grow up having that struggle, right? So I as a kid, I knew I wanted wealth. I knew I wanted cars. I knew I wanted the nice house and to have all those things. And I really set my focus on that. I think if you don't want something, you're not going to get it. Mm-hmm. You have to want it.
Yep.
And I think that want comes from not having it sometimes, right?
What was the first thing you ever bought yourself that you thought was a splurge once you started making money?
There's a list.
So like think about it. If you fast forward to 96 you were, what were you, 20 something years old?
Yeah, early 20s.
Without
22.
putting a pin on it, so 22.
Yeah.
And then you started learning a trade, and then you jumped over to the big boy's desk when? What year?
98, 99.
So now you're making some scratch. Was it right around that time that you said, I'm buying a nice meal, a nice car, a watch, a trip, a suit? Like, what was the thing where you go, man, I'm actually going to treat myself? Do you know?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, you had to take me through that, and now it was. I worked for GMAC.
Okay.
And they had, you could go get a deal on a GM car.
Okay.
You got dealer pricing basically. So I went and bought a GMC Sierra 1500.
That's cool.
Extended cab, and then I took that car from the dealership to the off-road warehouse, and I had the lift kit put on and the big wheels, and chipped it out, and that was probably I made it.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is something to be said about having a family to provide for. When you become that person, so it's not just you, but it's your children and your wife, that when you leave the door, they're depending on you.
Yeah.
Providing the house and the food and the luxuries of life. It is, to me, there's probably no greater motivator. And I think that one of the Q&A back and forth with you was like your top 3 things that get you out of bed, and it was providing health and well-being for my family. And I just loved that about you.
Yeah.
I loved that.
Yeah.
So
a lot like your story.
So maybe it's not that I love me, but I do love the grind. I do think that, and that never leaves. It does not matter how successful you are. There's something inside you that causes you to originate scared, meaning you're going to pick up the phone, you're going to make outbounds, you're going to do what you need to do to get a pipeline going because you have a nut to crack and a family to feed and goals and aspirations, and you're getting them.
Yeah.
Like no one's standing in the way of that.
Yeah.
Have you ever done a SWOT analysis?
Yeah, I mean, in school.
Yes.
And I think, you asked me for a SWOT analysis?
Well, so like for any of you that don't know what it is, it's a SWOT: strength, weakness, opportunities, threats, and I think it's actually, I think you can do that in relationships. I think you could do that with family. Certainly, you could do it with business, and try to be as honest as you possibly can with yourself, because in that is your business plan to success, I believe. And so if you think about that, like think about Kip today and all that you've done in 30 years of being in this space.
Yeah.
What would you say your strength is today?
I think it's the experience. I mean, I don't think we touched on it much, but I am a real estate investor, and I've been a real estate investor concurrent with being a real estate broker and with being a private money lender, and I have properties. And so when somebody comes to me and they talk about what they want to do, I've been through that, and I give them that mentorship, right? And I talk about, look, this is what I've done. I've already done it. You can take my advice. So I think that is my strength. We're small, boutique-y, and I've got that experience, and I can talk to somebody about, hey, this is where the rubber meets the road. These are the things you need to be concerned about. Yeah,
because you can't read about that on the internet and learn it overnight. You have to live it. And the fact that you also own property and you have dealt with tenants and evictions and equity and
rehab
budgets, like it's all part of the story.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Tougher question, weakness. Like, this isn't therapy, but if it was.
This has been 24 hours of therapy.
A little bit.
Actually. I mean, it's been good.
Cheers.
Cheers. I would think on the weakness side, let me get my drink. I would think on the weakness side, probably, it's like a job interview, right? You're trying to think of what you could say that you could improve on yourself. I mean, I think the weaknesses are we don't have the big deep pockets, and you know, so it's got to fit our program.
Mm-hmm.
Those are our business weaknesses, and getting our name out there.
Yeah.
You know, I think we're working on getting our presence and telling people we're here, but right now I think that's our weakness.
Yeah,
that's
and I would say
one.
if you said, okay, Bill, I'll let you be therapist for a second, I'd say, yeah, you know what, it might also be a strength because you do have controlled growth.
Yeah.
You do have your hands in what's going on. You have total understanding of your business. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, you're not doing hundreds of millions of dollars a month, but you know that every borrower, every loan,
Yeah.
what the likelihood of performance is, where that was, what's the nuances of it. And a lot of these big companies have no idea until it shows up as a non-performing loan. So I would actually say, don't be so hard on yourself.
That's good therapy.
Yeah, right? I'll bill you later. What about opportunities?
Opportunities, I think I think the market is an opportunity right now. I think you and I have talked about this a lot in the last 24 hours. There's a shortage of inventory.
There is.
And I think there's still that aging housing stock that needs to be brought up to a livable condition, or a condition that someone can move into, throw their keys on the counter and live in with pride. And that's what a flipper does,
Yes.
right? You go in and you go, I know you've got 3% to put down. The flipper's got 20% to put down, and they're going to take the risk and make all those repairs and bring that property up commensurate to the nicest properties in the neighborhood, so that you can come in with your FHA financing, buy that property, throw your keys in the counter, make your dinner. There's tons of opportunity in that. And there's, for the novice borrower that wants to get into this, there's tons of opportunity. For the novice borrower that wants to get in and have the passive income of a rental property, tons of opportunity in that. I think the market offers tons of opportunity right now.
You know, you were talking about black swan events and seeing things, and I, in a very murky market, it has never been more clear to me. And it almost sounds like Nostradamus-like, but I actually believe we are entering into one of the greatest opportunistic times in the BPL real estate space in decades. And you say, why? For the reasons you mentioned, 7 million homes underwater. I think rates come down. I think DSCR becomes more affordable. I think people have exits and can buy those beautified homes that flippers are rehabbing.
Yeah.
I think this market is so ripe for companies like yours, companies like ours, and a lot of our competitors to do unbelievable things for the flipping community and the long-term hold community. I've never been more certain about a real estate market direction than I am today. Never. Yeah. And it just, when you said, like, I felt it, I saw, and I just knew that this was a time, that's exactly how I feel right now. I just think that your opportunities that you shared are not just yours. I think there are a lot of people's opportunities for those that are willing to open up their eyes and see it the way that we're sharing, right? Yeah. What about threats?
The threats, I would say the competition, the new entries into the market, the lenders that can come in and maybe do something a little bit more aggressive or a little bit cheaper and will take on more risk. Mm-hmm. I think that is a threat to our industry.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit, right? Like some of the conventional shops may be bringing on more and more DSCR to augment the refis that went away and the purchase volume that's dried up with the higher rates. I do believe, and I told you I spoke on a panel about this, that I think it's problematic just from an oversight and governorship of the different conventional to BPL, that a lot of those real big companies don't want to invite those types of loans into their house. Yeah. So I don't think it's as big, but I know that there are people out there that are ringing the bell saying that that could be a potential challenge. One of the things that I really enjoyed about your approach to communicating with the marketplace, just spending some time on your social media, was you were never like preaching to the choir, use me, I'm the guy, I can get you this, here's my rates, here's my programs. It was always tidbits of information that could help those that are thinking about becoming an investor, those that are thinking about diving into this space, and you have so many posts. I spend time on your Instagram, which I think you do a really, really good job.
Thank you.
Has that always been kind of your thought process? Help others,
Yeah.
not like sell me, do loans with me.
Yeah, I mean, I and it's twofold. I think there are. I know who I want to do business with when somebody's selling me something, and how I want to be approached and how it's hit on the head, and it's education. I want somebody to educate me, not just close me, right? So I'm offering that education, and I think hopefully at the end of those videos, or someone watches and they go, well, what is this guy?
Yeah.
Who is this guy? What does he do? And they go down the rabbit hole, and they start clicking on the comments and click on the links and find the website. And
Yeah.
yeah, and it's working. We're grinding at it right now.
Yeah, it's an organic process. It doesn't happen overnight.
Completely, yeah.
Right? But it does happen with a few folks calling you, doing a deal, telling a few other folks,
Yeah.
then following. I'm
Yeah.
a follower now.
Yeah.
I told you I was spinning on the bike, going through. I was going like, I actually really do enjoy the content.
Good.
And the quotes.
Yeah.
Are the quotes from you or somebody in your company?
Oh no, those are me. Yeah.
Those are good quotes.
Yeah, good.
I'd live by those, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
I don't, but I will now. Not all of them.
Then my job is done then.
Yes, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Most exciting thing you see today in your space, our space, your business? Is there any one thing that jumps out over you as we wrap up our time?
I love the BRRRR strategy.
Do you have any doors?
I do. I have 50 doors.
So you have 50 doors.
Yes, sir.
We're all 50, and I mean that. So first of all, that's significant.
Yeah.
Was it a onesie, twosie at a time, or was there this year I'm going to go get 10? Like, how do you get 50 doors?
Man, my story is you should label this podcast Kip's Dumb Luck.
Okay. All right. I'm down with that.
Okay. Maybe not. I don't know.
You're like,
yeah.
no.
So, but I started looking at properties. I didn't have a place to park my money. I told you this is my second venture in private money lending. And I sold my business in 2019, and I went, I need income. I need the passive income, and I need something to do. And so I started acquiring properties, and I thought, I don't know how long I'll hang on to these. And then COVID came along. And that's that black swan event thing where I go, I've got an uncanny ability to predict a black swan event. I sold my business in 2019.
Okay.
And then COVID hit.
March of 20.
Yeah.
So that was right in front of that.
Right in front of that. And I think everybody in the private lending space was like, stop, reevaluate, let's find out who's going to pay, what's going to happen to these properties, right?
I mean, a lot of people thought that real estate was going to go on the shitter.
Oh, yeah.
Like there was a precipice of like, are you a seller or are you a buyer?
Yeah.
There was a moment that probably lasted
Months?
a few months, right?
Yeah, I think so. And then all of a sudden you started to see, here's how an open house goes. And these people go out and they were clamoring on just those few properties, and everything went berserk.
It did.
Yeah.
It did. It like home sweet home changed because
It did.
I think the average flip time of someone that owner occupant, and these are from my old conventional days, was like you can count on a customer buying up or buying down every 4.5 years. That was kind of like the drip campaign to stay in front of your customer.
Yeah.
And then people started going, well, I'm going to take care of my older parents out of my home. I'm going to educate my kids out of my home. I'm going to work from home.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, like that inventory wasn't turning over. And people were kind of adding on and building on and staying put and taking advantage of 2% and 3% interest rates on their long-term financing. And so it's been a big part of the whole inventory problem, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
But
who's going to leave that rate to go trade for a 6-7%?
Yeah, for sure. It's but so you're going through COVID. You see this is your second.
Yeah.
And you say what? Like, I'm going to start buying real estate now?
I'm going to start buying real estate. Yeah, I started in 2019 and even through out of state. When I started acquiring properties and I had a pro forma of this is the rent I need. Mm-hmm. And this is how long I'll hold on to this property. If I can stabilize it at this rent, I'll turn around and sell this property. And then I'm underwriting at a $795 a door for 2-bed, 1-bath apartments in Ogden and Roy, Utah.
Okay.
And now I'm getting $1295 a door.
I like that.
Yeah.
Like that.
I'm like, why would I trade this real estate?
That's right.
And there's a part of me that says, why ever trade real estate?
Very, very, very good business relationship I have. Bought his first piece of real estate in 1973.
Yeah.
Never sold a piece of real estate and owns $6.5 billion
Wow.
of real estate today.
Yeah.
One of the wealthiest real estate owners in the United States. And it's by buying single family residence and levering it the right way, getting the low rates and then paying it down. I mean, it's just the entire portfolio is so unlevered and he will not sell.
Yeah.
So there's something, think
Something
about
to be said for that, yeah.
Think about all the properties that you've sold in your lifetime.
Regret every single one of them.
Right?
Yes.
Like I had this conversation a couple podcasts ago with a guy. It's like, whoa, what are you talking about? I bought it for $500. I sold it for $975. I made $400,000. Who makes that kind of money? And I was 20% leverage, so I like 5x'd my money. It was a winner. What's it worth today? $3.25 million. Like
Yeah.
You're going like, what the heck?
Yeah.
And I don't think there is an example you could look at since you got in the space
Yeah.
where the real estate's equal or less.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
Is that crazy?
Yeah. You only have regrets when you sell those properties.
For sure.
Yeah. Even the fix and flips that I've done over the years.
Well, I would say this, like I am personally, and it might feel weird to hear this from me, but I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
I'm proud of you because of where you came from. I'm proud of you because of seeing the forest through the trees when you're in the toughest, crappiest part of our business, which is default resolution,
Yeah.
and working your way to the front end, which is creating wealth for people the way that you do, and doing it over a 30-year period, being a real estate owner and a family provider, and it's an honor to have spent time with you.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Bill.
Really appreciate you. If people want to get a hold of you, tell them where they could look and follow you on Instagram and the like.
Yeah, you can find us at www.diversifiedfinancingsolutions.com, and all our social media links are there. Follow us on YouTube and Instagram and enjoy the content.
Awesome. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Been a pleasure.
Me too. Are you ready to define success on your own terms and hear from those who have done exactly that? Follow us on your social media platforms at CV3 Financial and join the Unconventional crew for inspiring stories and insights. Go be unconventional.